Okay, I've been somewhat following a story which I think really exemplifies a big problem that we're seeing right now regarding double standards. I was going to say the perception of double standards, but it's double standards, just plain double standards. It's not a perception, it's a reality. So I'm going to read out a bit of the article from the Daily Mail. I will put a link. Just a disclaimer, the Daily Mail is not my favourite newspaper. I certainly don't agree with all its editorial stances or its takes on things, but and this is an area where I think that they're right to at least highlight it. Um, I'll read out a bit of the report, and as always, I'll put a link to this. Um, so as to avoid copyright, or whether or not I monetize this, I don't know. And the report is as follows. Cambridge University-backed academic who tweeted "White Lives Don't Matter" and promotes her to professor after she received a barrage of abuse and death threats. Dr. Priyamvada Gopal was hit by a wave of abusive messages and death threats. The academic tweeted, "I'll say it again, white lives don't matter, as white lives." Cambridge University defended rights of academics to express lawful opinions, and the reports by Bhavishya Patel from Mail Online. So, the University of Cambridge has spoken out in support of one of its lecturers who was hit by a wave of abusive messages and death threats for tweeting "White Lives Don't Matter." Dr. Priyamvada Gopal, 51, who teaches in the Faculty of English at Churchill College, took to the social media platform on Tuesday evening to write, "I'll say it again, white lives don't matter, as white lives." Wonder when they'll rename the Churchill College. However, the controversial message, which has since been deleted by Twitter, was met with a barrage of outrage, with many people responding both publicly and privately with death threats and racist abuse. And I'll come to that point in a minute. A petition entitled "Fire Cambridge Professor for Racism" was also launched on the petition site change.org on Wednesday, demanding that Dr. Gopal be fired by the university for the comment. And the report goes on to say, Dr. Gopal later shared some of the hate speech she had received, including from a man sending her a picture of a noose and writing, "We are coming for you, you Nigger, loving piece of shit," right? It's vitriolic. I'm going to address that point. As well as sharing some of the worst abuse she has received, Dr. Gopal, who is also a journalist and activist, announced that on Wednesday night the university promoted her to a full professorship. No particular reason why they've done that. It sounds like almost they're rewarding her for the outrage. She added, "I would also like to make clear I stand by my tweets, now deleted by Twitter, not me. They were very clearly speaking to a structure and ideology, not about people. My tweet said whiteness is not special, not a criterion for making lives matter. I stand by that." Following the torrent of abusive messages, the Russell Group University defended the academic and deplored the attack she has faced since her tweet. A statement released by the university read, "The university defends the right of its academics to express their own lawful opinions, which others might find controversial. It deplores, in the strongest terms, abuse and personal attacks. These attacks are totally unacceptable and must cease." Meanwhile, the Cambridge branch of the University and College Union also showed their solidarity with Dr. Gopal. Um, the union wrote, "Solidarity with Priyamvada Gopal being targeted with vile sexist and racist abuse for speaking up against white supremacists." Now that's automatically a distortion, and I'll explain why in a second. "We are proud to be your colleagues both on the picket line and off it. Black Lives Matter solidarity." Many students and colleagues have since expressed solidarity with Dr. Gopal following the incident, with even popular comedian Nish Kumar wading in to call her one of the best and brightest around. However, the university's defense of Dr. Gopal has been labelled by some as inconsistent and politically biased. Critics have pointed to the recent removal of Noah Carl from his research position at St Edmund's College over links with far-right extremist groups, and others have referred to the university rescinding a visiting fellowship invitation to controversial Professor Jordan Peterson in March last year. Opponents of the university's stance have suggested that the same defence of free speech and tolerance of controversial views was not extended in these instances. Okay, let's look at this in a bit more detail. Firstly, to her defense, she's totally standing by the tweets. She claims that she was talking about structural racism as opposed to targeting individuals, but clearly it was targeting white people, saying white lives don't matter as a concept. She is of South Asian descent. I don't know if Indian or Sri Lankan, I'm not sure to be honest, but she's of South Asian descent. So she's lashing out at white people, saying white lives don't matter, and she's saying as white lives. So she's trying to make out that this is about a structural thing. But for those who want to play the devil's advocate here and say, well, she's actually criticizing identity politics, she's actually taking an angle of saying that the color of your skin isn't a criterion for your life mattering. There's an obvious hypocrisy there, as she is a Black Lives Matter activist. Um, so what she's essentially saying is white lives don't matter, but black lives and brown lives do. Now, I don't care how people gloss that over. As far as I'm concerned, that is a racist position, whatever way you gloss it over. The fact that the university and students and student bodies have rushed to her defense really, really doesn't surprise me. I think it's very unfortunate, but it doesn't surprise me. Now, about some of the backlash that she's received, that quote about the noose and those sort of comments are obviously disgusting. I'm not going to defend them. No matter how angry people are, there's no excuse for that. I don't think that those sort of comments should be leveled at anybody, actually. But there is a sort of trend with this. What you get is someone making profoundly inflammatory statements, and then they get a backlash, and the focus is all on the backlash. It's not on the original inflammatory nature of the comments. It's a little bit like when Kathy Newman, the journalist Kathy Newman, had that head to head with Jordan Peterson. A lot of the media focus afterwards was about on the awful sexism that she received because a lot of men apparently contacted her with sexist messages. But when you have a controversy, you're going to get some people that can't control their emotions very well and they do stupid things. And I will never condone violent threats, right? It's stupid, it's boneheaded, and it's wrong. I'm not going to condone it no matter how angry people are. So let's just be clear about that. I do not condone that. But I also think that it's pretty grotesque, frankly, that one of the world's most prestigious universities is basically backing this racist. Until she proves otherwise, I'm going to consider her a racist. And I have to say, I was talking about this on a thread earlier, which, by the way, has people from all backgrounds. But on the thread, I said it must make her white students, she's a lecturer, feel very uncomfortable. But it was pointed out to me, and this is actually worth thinking about, a lot of the white students would probably be defending her because they're fully woke and they just need to show their credentials as being allies. But this is a repugnant example of double standards. If you had a white lecturer make a generalizing sweep against all black people, or let's say, for example, they critique the concept of Black Lives Matter, saying, no, that's an inflammatory, polarizing statement, all lives matter, they would be fired. So there is a real, in my opinion, vile intolerance in our universities these days. And it's coming from the regressive left and the woke mob. It's kind of ironic. In the 1960s in China, the Cultural Revolution was aimed at academics. You had literally teachers and lecturers beaten to death by their own students. It was one of the darkest periods of the 20th century. And I'm not talking just, called names, I'm talking literally beaten to death. Now, obviously, we haven't seen anything like that. But now what we're seeing is these really far left academics. And I'm basing that on the fact that she is clearly promoting the sort of cultural Marxist narrative of extreme identity politics, cancelling white people, and so on. We are seeing they're usually middle-aged sort of people, let's say between their mid-40s and mid-60s, and they're promoting this sort of narrative. And you get young woke activists, let's say averaging late teens to early 30s, taking up their cause. And it's a reminder of why I really, really don't miss university, because universities are supposed to be places of learning, of education, of debate. But the fact that Cambridge has really rushed to defend her and make her out to be the victim shows where they stand. There obviously is double standards. So the freedom of expression defense just looks phony when they would not extend the same um, expectation of freedom of expression to, say, a controversial right wing speaker. They did allow Tommy Robinson to speak a few years at the Oxford Union, which is very controversial. But if we look at the way Jordan Peterson's been treated, having his invitation from Cambridge rescinded. But this isn't the first example of double standards in a powerful institution. We've seen it in the media as well. A case I've cited a number of times is that of Sarah Jung. She's a Korean American columnist, activist, who works for the New York Times. A few years ago, she made a really vitriolic rant about white people, calling them ugly goblins, among other such abuse. Now, her official excuse for this, she showed no remorse, was it was simply a retort to right wing trolls. And I have no doubt that Dr. Gopal is going to come out with the same excuses. Already, we can see the narrative being spun here that she was referring to white supremacists. That's just a lie. She was referring to all white people. Systemic racism is aimed at all white people as a concept. If she even wanted to raise an issue about this, she would have known the statement "White Lives Matter," "White lives don't matter," is a very, very inflammatory statement. She sounds like a rank snob to me. She sounds like she's coming from a point of privilege. She's a university lecturer. You know, where's the white privilege for the scores of innocent young girls preyed on by grooming gangs in the north of England? I don't want to keep up bringing up that point because I just don't particularly want to bring it up. But the situation that we are in, these culture wars, forces people to point out hypocrisies. And I think it is moral cowardice on the part of Cambridge University to not be consistent. If they're going to say this is her freedom of expression to be controversial, then they need to accept that, say you had someone who had very hardline views on immigration or Islam or whatever it might be, they would need to rush to the same defense. And clearly they won't do that. Now, what she's going to do is she's going to take the worst comments, so comments that maybe are racist as well. She's a racist, but she'll take the counter-racist comments, um, and the sexist comments, and she'll hold that up to be all her critics. That's what's so grotesque about this. It's a bit like those who criticize Kathy Newman. I did at the time because some idiots did make some sexist retorts to her. That was held up as being the whole counter narrative. The Guardian and the Independent said Kathy, they had an interview with her, Kathy Newman, on sexism, speaking out as a woman and all this sort of crap, totally based on distortion. It totally ignored the fact that she went into that interview in a very sloppy, unprofessional way, clearly out to get Jordan Peterson, not going in as a professional journalist simply asking questions, but in to try and frame him in a certain way. And I'm not one of these people that worship Jordan Peterson. I'm sure he's got his faults. But it was so, so blatantly obvious what Kathy Newman was doing there. She was extremely rude. She kept interrupting him. It was more like an interrogation than an interview, like Paxman style. and people didn't like it. They saw through it and they didn't like it. Um, so what we're seeing here is Dr. Gopal is now getting a backlash because she angered a lot of people, and she is holding up the worst examples of the, counter abuse that she's got, which I don't condone, and she's holding that up to be everyone who's critical of her. Well, I'm offended by her attitude. White lives don't matter. But that doesn't mean I'm going to send her some sexist or racist message. I decided to check out her Facebook page just to see if she was going to show any sort of remorse or even say that she was taken out of context. She hasn't even done that. To me, speaks volumes. And it says that there is a real complacency with certain black and brown racists that they will get away with it. That's what's happening. And until the media, and I think the whole media is, even the Daily Mail, the wording of that article, you could tell was fairly sympathetic to her. Until the media starts doing its job and holding people to account consistently, I think that anger and polarization is going to continue. I mean, the outrage over the White Lives banner stunt is another example. To be clear, I don't particularly support that stunt. I would much prefer it said all lives matter. But the very fact the police then admitted that no crime had been committed. There was a riot in Brixton last night, a serious riot. 15 officers were injured, breaking up an illegal rave. So why can't the authorities that be put the same sort of resources into that? Threats of Crown prosecution service and all this sort of thing, as they did with the way they threatened the White Lives Matter banner protest. I've been thinking recently that actually the new revolutionary is not being woke, and I'm going to clarify what I mean by this, maybe in the next video, time permitted. But in my opinion, she should step down on the grounds that as a lecturer, she will be working with students from all backgrounds. She's English lecturer. Now, if she's saying white lives don't matter, of course there's going to be a lot of woke white students who will virtue signal, but I imagine there will also be some who don't like it. I mean, if I was one of her students, I'd feel pretty uncomfortable being in her lecture hall. I'd feel, well, she looks down on me. She clearly doesn't want me in the room because of the white hierarchy. I don't care how respected or intelligent she is regarded as in the university, that statement was clearly inflammatory. And if her whole point was about the concept being muddled, then it's clearly not something that she's consistent with, as she fully endorses Black Lives Matter. So, whatever way you gloss it over, the attitude is I support Black Lives Matter as a movement, but I'm going to attack the very concept of White Lives Matter because whites already live. I think what she was driving at is, oh well, white privilege, they've no right to complain. The grooming gangs victims tell another story. It's a grotesque lie, the whole thing about white privilege, in my opinion, with an underriding nasty message of stirring up resentment against white people. I think it really needs to be challenged. But the biggest problem I see is not that bigots that her like her are out there, but that they get a free pass. It is disgraceful that the media gives them a free pass. Even right-wing tabloids go easy on them. Why? Why? Until as a society we start having consistency, then actually what's going to happen is it's going to drive more people to right-wing groups and far-right groups even, which is not a good thing. But that's what's going to happen because a lot of people are going to get so fed up with all the dishonesty and the double standards.